Let's talk about networking examples. Everyone always asks how to meet people that can open the right doors for you, how to get in the room to network with people who can actually progress your career forward more in one day than you could in 1 year. The answers I hear are always generic and often leave out how the responder actually managed to get through the hurdles. So I decided to provide specific examples of things that worked for me. Today's lesson: push yourself to get into the room with the right people to change your life. My dad was worried about me attending public school in Salinas because of his, let's call it, lawless history in the area. That's another story. But I ended up going to York School, a private high school in Monterey, because he was worried about my safety. I had to get scholarships to this school because it had a tuition that my family couldn't afford. And even with the scholarships and grants, all of my grandparents helped to make it happen. If I hadn't been the only child on either side of the family, this would not have been an option for me. So I'll always be thankful for that. High school was a great experience for me, despite how difficult it was, and York School offered an acting class for the first time in the fall of 2010, my junior year, and I took the class. Around the same time, a new school, I guess you'd call it an acting and film production trade school, opened in the area, the Hara Motion Picture Conservatory, and on October 14th, 2010, one of the two founders, Michael Buffo, came to give a presentation to the York School acting class. They were shooting a movie in December with actors from the film school, and I wanted to be in that film. Already, it took two things working together for me to even be aware of this opportunity. One, I had to be taking an acting class, and two, I had to be taking it at a high school in Carmel, Pacific Grove, or Monterey, because these presentations were not done at high schools in Salinas, Seaside, or Marina, at least not in the first couple seasons. So your takeaway here is that to get the opportunity, I had to be in an area with other people with similar interests, and I had to get to the upscale or more affluent areas of people with those similar interests. Keep in mind, though, that I didn't belong to that tax bracket, so I needed to start working for the film school in order to attend it, because my family couldn't really afford the tuition, especially not on top of York tuition. So I started my first real job when I was 16, but I wasn't saving any money because all of my income was going right back to paying for the school. I'm sure you've heard people say you've got to put in the work. Well, this was my time when I had to start putting in the work. November 20th, 2010 was the first day of class at the Hara Motion Picture Conservatory, which taught at the Carmel Youth Center. And my schedule looked like York School Monday through Friday and Hara classes Saturday and Sunday. Rinse and repeat. You might think, oh, wow, no days off, but I mean, winter break must be a relief, right? Wrong, because that's when we shot the film. Instructions Not Included was what I think of as my first real film that I was a part of. It was about 53 minutes long, so they called it a featurette, and the whole film was shot in 10 days. My last day of finals at York was December 14th. The last weekend of Hara classes were the 18th and 19th, and the first day of production was the next morning. We had the 23rd through the 26th of December off, but other than that, we were on set every day from December 20th until January 2nd, 2011. So I traded a vacation for spending long days on a film set. But there was a ton of information that I learned compressed into that time frame. Glenn, the director of photography, brought a bunch of equipment that he had, so that was when I learned how to set up and tear down C-stands and lighting and learned some unusual terms for equipment used on film sets. That was when I learned how to set up and balance a camera tripod, and when I learned that people will argue for hours and hours over which of the two main methods of rolling up cables is the correct way. The work of a grip, as it's called. You need a strong grip for that kind of work, but I don't think that's where the term comes from originally. On top of that, I was also acting in the film. I had to play the part as best I could. There were a lot of characters and overlapping plot lines that ran throughout the film, so it wasn't too focused on any one character, so I didn't have a ton of screen time, but no one else did either. Personally, I think I was a little too young to be able to accurately portray some of the experiences my character went through in that film, but that's another story. By the time the film was over, I had the knowledge and experience necessary to work on a thesis film for someone getting their master's from USC. But that's another story too. The lesson here is that being in the right room with the right people at the right time unlocked an experience that gave me access to entry-level work in a new field. But perhaps even more important than that is that it had to be done without knowledge of the end goal. I didn't take a class at York School so I could work on Instructions Not Included. But pursuing an interest in entertainment-related careers led to opportunities in entertainment-related careers. That same lesson applies across all fields. You might not end up where you were originally intended, but you'll most likely end up with opportunities and connections within the field you're aiming for. So I would say relentlessly pursue the life trajectory you want, but keep an open mind about your exact destination. After a few months as the assistant editor of the film to pay off my tuition, I got to attend my first film premiere. And I don't think I ever saw my family that proud of me before, or maybe since. We all dressed up, perhaps our best dressed ever at that point. The cast got to ride in a limousine. Our friends went as our dates. We had photos taken on the red carpet. Almost all my friends and family made it out. Things really seemed to be looking up at that point. The only downside I remember was that the event went on way, way too long, but Mark Paulus was in charge of that, not me. This event did set expectations high, though. My friends and family would want to go to that kind of event again, but those are few and far between, especially at that age. But anyway, that's my lesson, story, and fun facts for the day. I tried to include info for friends, filmmakers, students, networkers, event planners, and more. So hopefully you learned something along the way.
You and Amelia, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. How'd things go with your dad?
Could have gone better, could have gone worse.
What happened?
Well, I did get busted. But on the other hand, I get to have more parties if I tell him about it.
Really? Wow. That's actually really nice for your dad.
Well, he did throw the book at me. Literally. Phone book.
Well, he is a cop.
Okay, we made a deal. If I stay in La Crosse, when he's out of town, I can have parties. Like I said, he's a cop, so he can't really officially know anything about it.
Plausible deniability. That works. So we can do this again? You can throw some pretty awesome parties.
We can do this again? We will do this again. Hoo ha! Hoo ha! Ha!